What is up, everybody? Zach here. Welcome back to Case Digital. In today's video, we're answering the question of how to find the length of a list in Python. So without further ado, let's hop right in and start coding. What is up, everybody? So like I mentioned in this video, we are trying to find the length of a list in Python. Well, how do you do that? Well, you count it, right? And that's exactly what we're going to do. Essentially, what I'm going to show you today is two different methods that you can use to find that the length of the list in Python. And you'll want to stick to method number 2, which I'll show here shortly, but because that is a very quick, easy, and it's the way to do it. It's the most efficient way to do it. But maybe there's times where method number 1 could come in handy. So let's first talk about method number 1. And actually, before we do that, let me show you our setup. Essentially, our setup is this. We have a list named current list that has, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 values, basically just numbers 1 through 4. So that list should have a size of 4. We've counted that manually. We know that that should be a value of 4. Well, method number 1 is just using loops and a counter. Essentially, what we do is we use a for loop in this case. You could do this with a while loop. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for each item in the list, I'm essentially going to just take this counter and I'm going to increment it by 1. Now, technically for this, I don't have to have item here. I could do this underscore thing that basically tells Python that like, I'm not using this value in the list, so don't even worry about it. I'm doing other things, but I need to go through this list to actually accomplish it. But I always like to do this just in case I need it. Now there's times where you might not. But anyways, essentially when I run this should go through each item and then go through each item. The item would be available to be used, but technically I'm not using it, and I'll just count. So when I run this, I should essentially just get 4. And I run it and the length equals 4. So that's pretty much it. It's really simple. That's the naive approach. Like if you're first learning about this and you've learned about loops, that's the way to do it. You just loop through, count it up. Now, let's talk about method number 2 and a method that you can use that actually makes this really, really easy. Hey, I just want to jump in real quick, say thank you so much for watching the video so far. If it's providing you value, please click that like button below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so we can learn more about software development and programming. And well, speaking of programming, let's get right back to it. Okay, so method number 2 I said was going to be a one-liner, really easy, nice method you can use. And drum roll, please. That's exactly what it is. It's basically this length object. Now, I've talked about this in previous videos. This length, not length object, but this length function basically can be used on any object that can be iterable, such as lists, dictionaries, tuples, things like that. When you apply this will run through and allow you to return the number of items in that container, in that object. And so, for instance, if I put a list in here and I want to get the value of the list out, I just do length of list. And if I turn on method number 2 now, if I uncomment it and run, and that's actually just do this method 1, and then we'll do method 2 here. If I run this, you should see they equal the same exact value. And sure enough, they do. So that's it, folks. That's exactly method number 2. You just basically use this piece of code right here. And this will tell you in a list, in a dictionary, in a tuple, in a set, whatever. This will tell you the value or the number of items in that list. Hey, thank you so much for programming with me today. I hope that those two functions or those two methods of finding the number of items in a list will help you out in the future. And again, like I mentioned, method number 2 of just using the length function, that's the way that I do it. That's the way that I find usually that's most of the time, I would say 99.9% of the time, that is the way that I actually go about finding the length or however many objects are in a list, a dictionary, a tuple, and stuff like that. Granted, method number 1, where you basically use a for loop and just count through it, that can be helpful for different reasons, and maybe I'll get more into that in another video. But essentially, if you want to, if you haven't learned about the length function, hey, that's it. Use that function because that is the way that you're going to find the length of a value in a list. So without further ado, hope you have a good rest of the day. Use this in your code, practice it, leave any comments below if you have any questions, and until next time, keep on coding.